Welcome to Politics and Run. I'm Egberto Willies at the Bridge Alliance Conference. Folks, we have been meeting great folks from all over the place, organizations that are making a difference in the country. And today I'm with no other than Maxim Thorne from the Andrew Goodman Foundation. Maxim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Look, first of all, I want to thank you for coming out here, because I think more than ever, voting is of utmost importance, and what you're doing with your organization is important. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
The Andrew Goodman Foundation is actually part of a tragic story in America, in which Andrew, who was 20 years old and an upper income, wealthy white man, Jewish, traveled to Mississippi in 1964. And he and two of his companions were murdered on their first day in Mississippi for trying to register African Americans to vote. And the organization was founded by his family in 1966. And since then, we have been committed to expanding our democracy so it's inclusive and just. And that's really threatened again right now in a very serious way. We have witnessed in the last few months over the summer ethnic cleansing and murders in El Paso and Poway. We've had a real attack on our democratic institutions and a feeling of the people who look like me or you don't belong in this society that we have and our families and ancestors have given so much to. And so what we're trying to do is make young voices and votes a powerful force in our democracy.
Now, many, and I'm going to get to that other part secondly, but many are going to say, ethnic cleansing. They're going to look at you talking about El Paso or talking to you about, I think it occurred in Ohio. We know what's happening in many different facets as somehow it's not ethnic cleansing. Expand on that, because people have a tendency to believe we hyperventilate when we say certain things, but we know it's different.
Right. I think people are trying to whitewash white supremacy and white supremacist terrorist domestic terrorism. That's what it is. The manifestos that came out of the perpetrator in El Paso and in Poway and in Pittsburgh, it's very clear that they intended to kill Mexicans or Jews or any other sort of marginalized ethnic or racial minority. And so we should not cover this up. And it is a pattern, it's not one-off. And neither is it madness, which is just an escape into doing nothing. There's concerted evil, starting at the very top right now, that is given license to a movement that tries to diminish the numbers, literally, and the impact of people of color. In our line of work, we see this very much targeting youth of color and students, young people's communities, where they are erecting legally, but unconstitutionally, barriers for young people to vote. Removing polling sites from college campuses, the same way they remove polling sites from people of color neighborhoods. They are requiring ridiculous and unachievable voter identifications that young people do not have, or cannot afford, or they don't have a car, and so forth. Or they are instituting things like poll taxes. What I mean by that is they require you to have change your IDs, pay additional fees at motor vehicle, or pay for a mailbox, $75 a year, to be able to collect your absentee ballot. Right? These are all deliberate machinations.
Voter suppression techniques.
Absolutely.
By another name.
Yes. And the core of this country, the cancer from this country's founding that we see its malignancy permeating to today is a long race still. And that it is, when you people talk about voting purges, the people who are disproportionately targeted are African Americans, Latinos, Asians, when disproportionately youth of color. So if you think about one of the triggers to be purged is spellings that are unusual.
Right.
Or you voted in a previous location. One of the interesting things about young people is that they tend to move to college if they're in college, or they may have voted when they were in high school and now they vote which is in a different area. And that triggers that you will be removed from the voting roll, or you didn't return the postcard.
Right.
Well, if I'm at college and I came to college and I went home, I didn't return it. If I was not at home but I was at college, I didn't return it. That automatically gets you removed.
Right.
And so these are the strategies that when we see them operating, we should recognize how it is about corrupting our democracy and ensuring that we don't have a rightful voice in saying of what the direction our country and lives should be going.
Now, in the process, we know we have to change those process legally through the law somehow. But in the process, elections go on. What are you doing on the campuses and to ensure that while these oppressive measures are on, that the youth get their opportunity to vote?
Absolutely. We do three things: organizing, advocacy, and litigation. And what that means is we believe that young people together have all of the power and passion and intellectualism and compassion to understand these issues in each other and move their agenda.
Right.
And so we are trying to empower them and give them the tools by coaching and by financial resources so that they're organizing their peers on campus and getting and registering them to vote. They're also actively trying to remove barriers to voting, like not having a polling site on campus. So advocating before boards of elections in their communities so that they are polling sites. This is in a context, by the way, when you look at Florida or Iowa, where they're trying, or Austin, Texas, to ban polling sites from any college campus. So the strategy is, we're thinking, you want to make it easier for young people to vote. There are governments afoot in Florida they're saying we want to ban all polling sites from college campuses. So while you are trying to expand, they're actually trying to contract your ability. In terms of advocacy, young people care passionately about gun violence or mass incarceration or racial justice or climate change. And we are helping them find their voice, elevate their voice, giving them media training opportunities so that their message can be heard from the local government to Washington. And then in terms of litigation, there are some things that are clearly beyond their power right now to correct because they're legal barriers that have been erected. Horrible ones, like in Tennessee, which try to criminalize aspects of voter registration, up to a year in jail, or impose ridiculous fines for what they consider to be deficient voter registration forms. And if you submitted over 100, you got a $10,000 penalty, cumulative over many counties. So think about that. What deficient in Tennessee meant. If it was inaccurate, if you signed up Steve instead of Stephen, that's inaccurate. Or incomplete, if you did not check the box Mr. or Mrs. or Miss, that's inaccurate. That could subject you to those ridiculous penalties.
So you don't do it at all?
You don't do it at all. Right, there's such fear, right? You're a young person, and you really want to help someone when you know you could be subject to this.
For helping, yes.
Right. But think about how devious it is. So you are penalized for inaccurate or incomplete forms. But the law says you must turn in any and all forms that you received. So even if I perceive this is inaccurate and this is incomplete, I must still turn it in and subject myself. It's a catch-22, so I don't do it at all.
And yeah, because if you turn it in incomplete, or if you try to fix what was incomplete, now that is
exactly illegal.
Illegal
Fraud, right? So we sued both in Tennessee, on behalf and with our students, and in Florida with our students, and we won both cases. And so trying to keep the playing field fair and just against people who do not want a just and fair society. And it's exciting because we saw in the 2018 midterms, young people doubled their voting rate.
They overperformed.
Yes, so it's possible.
And this is the importance of activism. Last question. What do you feel you got out of the Bridge Alliance conference that you are going to take back with you?
I think that one of the most important things is our joint humanity. Across race, gender, sexuality, and age. And what the Bridge Alliance is attempting to do is allow us to see each other's humanity and uncover the myriad things that are attempting to divide us,
right,
and then bring us together. And part of that is just ignorance that people have. We are now operating in 25 states in Washington, D.C., reaching over 1 million young people. We will reach over 2.5 million next year. And because we have people on the ground, we're surfacing the myriad ways in which they're trying to deny people the right to vote, and young people in particular. If you're not doing this work, you don't know.
Right.
You don't know the level of behavior that is deliberately trying to say, I'm gerrymandering your campus, so if you change dorms, you can no longer vote because you didn't re-register, or you didn't have a utility bill, so you can't prove you live there, and whatever else. And we can now show people who are not exposed to this, there's a pattern afoot in this country to deny young people the right to vote, and bring that conversation and learn from others in the room that are saying, we don't know, and we didn't realize that this was happening, and that's why we didn't direct ourselves to that. And I think in this sort of a conversation and exchange of information and sharing in a community of trust, is the model for creating a better world and getting us beyond this moment.
Maxim Thorne, it was my pleasure to have you aboard. Thank you for
so
being
much.
here at Bridge Alliance. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the Politics Done Right dialogue.
It's my pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your work.
Absolutely.
Okay.